Okay, says we're live, but are we live? Let's find out. Yeah, I can see us on the thing. We just popped up immediately. All right, because I don't want to have to edit everything together, so we're just going to start from scratch, and we're going to move really, really fast because you have a game at 8 o'clock, and honestly, it's a good practice to go faster on some of these. So real quick, we're going to say it. This VodCast is going to be about onboarding a new player, not just a new player character, but a new player to an existing game.
Yep.
All right. So, with that in mind, you were telling us about a time when you were running your first game on the server, which was Rime the Frost Maiden. Ori had to leave because he had a conflicting schedule with his kids' soccer league. He left. You onboarded Volpe from the server. You did a session 0 with them, told them the sorts of decisions that we have made to let that guide the sort of character they made. So don't make the kind of character that is probably going to butt heads with this kind of decision-making process. Ultimately, did you feel that that was enough? Do you feel like you did a good enough job onboarding that new player?
So again, because they were, familiar with the server and, familiar with some of the other players as well, very familiar with you. So, you joining in and having a friend in the what you call it, in the group made things a lot easier. So I didn't have to do too much.
Right.
Which made it a lot easier. So yeah, I could have done more, but I feel like I didn't need to because of the situation that we were in.
Okay.
But other things that, in terms of things that I like looking back at it, stuff I could have done is in that session 0, I talked about some of this. I pretty much just went through the rundown of what has happened so far in the story, and I just highlighted all the decisions they've made and the type of characters they've done. Part of that could be also just kind of asking them, like, what are they doing, the normal new player kind of interview things that you would do even if you were just starting brand fresh, is just ask them what they're interested in, so that I can make adjustments in the game so that they can have what they want. So there's always that, all the stuff that you would normally do for a just having new play, just gathering players, you'd want to do with a brand new player who's joining mid in the middle of a campaign. So there's always that. Let me see what else. It a lot of it already depends on what you're like. You want to make sure they are familiar with the type of, if it's a beer and pretzels type of situation, you want to make sure they know that. Manage expectations. Again, it always comes down to managing expectations for your players. So you want to make sure that you let them know what they're getting into, and make sure your other players know who's joining too. And that's probably something I didn't do, is just kind of inform the rest of the group, like, okay, here's the person who's joining. This is what they're about, okay. Which I didn't necessarily need to do it too much because people were familiar with Volpe enough, consider she played an extra life and all that stuff. So there's that. For Cyberpunk, the second time this happened to me, where Caden X had to leave because of work stuff, we got Carsafona. So a similar thing where I've been lucky enough that pretty much all my players have been people who are kind of regulars on the server. So it's been helpful for me in terms of not worrying about too much about the people driving and getting along. But in this case, similar thing I did. I had a mini session 0 with Carsafona, kind of explain what has happened so far, and he was kind of following along too, watching. So he kind of knew some of the stuff that happened. And then, asked him what type of character he's making. He said, and then giving him some advice about the character. And one thing that I did with Cyberpunk from the beginning was made sure that everybody kind of knew each other prior to joining. Their characters knew each other prior to the adventure starting. They had some type of tie, which is what we did in Strength of Thousands. So that was one of the things I said, okay, does anybody want to be the person who knows Carsafona? And then, we rolled for it. And I think it was Darby whose character was also just died. So he was coming out with a new character who knew Cadenix's character, who left. So the story we did here was Cadenix left, introduced them to Darby's new character. Darby's new character knew Carsophona. And so they kind of came in together, which, that's how we kind of onboard the new character and the new player, was making sure that, integrating them into how we already run things here and make sure they know, what's kind of the underlying, sort of meta rules and adjustments that we've made so far. I mean, it is like all the stuff you would do when you first get a new player, like regardless, like just new you're starting a new campaign, you're starting off with new players, all that stuff you want to do with the person who's new joining mid-session, and then also inform them with what has happened so far and what type of group the group has formed into from play. So I think those are really the big things there. Is everything you would normally do, plus.
Okay, fair enough. So I have here things that helped ease the process. IRL, recruit from shared community.
Yeah.
IRL, share streams, recorded games, campaign notes with potential players.
Mm-hmm.
I think a sub item for that would be, if you don't have any of those things, write up a new game ad tailored to and by the events that have occurred.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Campaign.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are in effect starting all over again, right? You're recruiting for this game, so you would post an ad for the game and all that, but the initial ad might not make sense anymore, right? Like, if you were recruiting for like Strut Isekai, and you say like, everybody's getting recruited from the real world, blah 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 blah, that might, and they're doing this and they're working against this person or they're working for this person. Maybe that's not 30, 40, 50 sessions in.
Maybe
that's not
all
what
the
Isekai
people died.
Yeah, maybe that's not what the campaign's about anymore. So you can't just be lazy, grab your initial ad for the game, throw it online and be like, yeah, it's just like this, but then not really, because then you're almost kind of catfishing them a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, let's see, in-game, tie the new player and character to one or more existing PCs. I think that's a really good idea. Alternatively, tie them to the story or favored NPCs. Could work also. Not as good as tying them to the PCs, but could work for that.
Work what's best for your campaign in this sense. Like, it may not make sense that they're tied to the PCs,
Advertise the game like it is just starting for the new players. Let the existing group know that they have new players incoming, depending on how many you're going to fit. Just like having a baby, right? You want to let the existing kids know. You don't just want to come home from the hospital one day and there's just a baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, you definitely want to let the group know, like, hey, we're going to fill this spot. We're going to throw up an ad. We're going to bring some people in. That brings me to things that help ease the process. IRL, ask your players if they can recommend anyone.
Yeah, that's really good.
Because then they will already have friend in the group, which is good.
But if you do this, still keep in mind all the other stuff that you want to do, like treat them as a new player, check them out, because your player might have a friend who wants to join, but they may be good friends but not good D&D friends or tabletop friends. Like, those that thing where, like, you guys are great hanging out with each other, but when you're playing tabletops, you guys can't get along.
Exactly.
Might ruin a friendship.
Still interview the potential player to check fit. Absolutely. Okay. Well, in the 29, I don't know, 30 years, 31 years, it's time, that I've been doing this. I have had to do this a lot. I don't know if it's because I'm a bad DM or if it's like life happens or what, but like, I have had to do this a number of times. I've been told a very specific DMing style, and it does not always sit well with players, particularly Pathfinder kids. They need something more structured than what I am able to give them. So sometimes I have people join a game and they stick around for like 1 or 2 games and they're like, this is a madhouse. Like I'm getting out of here, right? Like they can't do it. Sometimes I have people join a game, and these are online games, right? So I don't go, especially in the early days of running paid games, or the early days where we didn't have a huge community of people that wanted to play D&D, and so you just kind of like looked for ads at the game store, and met up with complete rando strangers and hoped to God it all worked out. Or your friend brought their friend because they thought their friend might like it, but their friend didn't like it. Or this guy got a girlfriend and he needs to spend more time with his girlfriend, so he's going to make his girlfriend come play D&D with everybody, and then she ends up being way cooler than your friend and also like much better at D&D. So like there's like all these dynamics, right? Social game. There's all this organic, messy human stuff like related to filling seats, and keeping those seats filled and keeping the group together. And keeping seats filled is a very like negative way, I think, to describe paid DMing. In the beginning, when I was doing paid DMing, it was very much about keeping seats full. And I look back on that and I'm disappointed in myself. I don't think I had enough reputation. I don't think I had enough proof of concept, right? I didn't record my games. There was nothing to like look at. You just had to believe me when I told you I was like a good DM. You just had to trust me. I was a good DM. There was no rep to like back it up. So I was very much just taking whoever wanted to play. And that resulted in groups that were not well curated. They were not well balanced. They didn't get along with each other. They all wanted different things. It also resulted in some just, real negative players sometimes of like, I'm paying for this, so I should get all the good stuff. Like I'm paying for this, so it's, like I should get the items that I want, and I should get the levels that I want, and I should, like a lot of entitlement, right? And so I had to tell people to leave. I had people tell me they wanted to leave. I had players say that they needed this other player to leave. There was a constant shifting of like players and filling those spots and all that kind of stuff. It was only after dealing with that for a while that I was like, I would rather run a skeleton crew game than just fill seats. Like I stopped wanting to just fill seats. It was less about filling seats. It was more about only having a group of people that can work well together, that can tolerate each other, that can support each other, that can build a story together. That became a bigger focus for me than filling seats. And it's another reason that I just don't understand why you would want like 6 or 7 or 8 people at the table. It just seems like so much of your energy would just be spent putting them all in a get along shirt, to try to like get anything done for your game. So how I handle things nowadays is my optimal game size is 5. If I see that there is enough interest and I am unsure that all of the players will stick around, I will sometimes risk going up to 6 players, which is something that I did for Red Hand of Doom Remix. Is I was like, I don't think all these guys are going to stick it out. Well, the joke was on me because they all did stick it out, so we had 6 players the entire campaign. but I had doubts. I was like, I don't know if they're really going to stick it out. Like, so maybe we'll go
You also-
6 players, and if we lose one, we just won't fill that spot, right?
Yeah, you also had that one where somebody said you're gonna be missing every other session or something like that.
Right, yeah. They said they were going to miss every other session, and then and then we were only playing like every other week, and it was like kind of like, we'll see how it goes. My goal nowadays is you do 5. You don't run a super long campaign. That's the other thing. There's don't run Kingmaker. Don't run Odyssey of the Dragon Lords. Run something that's going to go about a year, right? Most people could commit to a year of something. 2 years, 3 years, that's where it starts to get kind of rough. If I start with 5 people and it's a great group, and then we do lose somebody, I would be hesitant to fill that spot. Honestly, I would be hesitant to fill that spot. I might try to get by with 4. Pathfinder 2 is written for 4 players. I think personally it plays best with 5 players. I would never play it with 6 or more players. I would definitely have every Pathfinder 2 game start at 5, and if somebody had to drop, I would leave it at 4 in case that person could rejoin, until we finished at least the current book that we were in. Because the Pathfinder adventure paths are written in like a serialized manner, right? With like books making up the adventure path. They kind of have like a good stopping point between each book where you could justify a change in the party. You could kind of justify like, oh, this character got called away off season, right? In between seasons. This actor got canceled, so we had to kill off his character off screen, and now he's not there, but now we got this new cool character to replace him. Like that works, I think. As far as like a long ongoing narrative campaign like Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, all right, so with Prime, I wasn't 100% sure on the group dynamic, because I had some very big personalities in that group. And I mean that in a positive and a negative way. And so I knew from the beginning that there were going to be some shaky spots for sure. And a 2.5 2 to 3 year long campaign, you want to have a real solid group. And I tried my best for Prime to put together a very solid group. And ultimately, I think I succeeded. But I started that with, I want to say 6? Yeah, 6 players. And I started it with 6 because I knew 100% there's no way 6 people will make it 2.5 years. Like, I was confident that 6 people would not make it 2.5 years. And what I started to do from the very beginning of that campaign was seed the unchosen epic paths. So that campaign is epic paths, which are paths that the players choose, and that ties into the story in different ways. And sort of like in Pokemon, where if you pick boy trainer, girl trainer becomes your rival in the world, it was like that. They chose their epic paths, and then I said, oh, well, there's these other epic paths out in the world doing things. And so it was established that, like, oh, there are other heroes like us doing their own thing. And that actually came in handy because we had a player who had to drop for financial reasons, like COVID, and their job fell apart, and they just didn't have the money to play, and they had to work 2 or 3 jobs. So when that character left, I already had a person on the wait list, and we had already established their character in the background, and that was Larionis' character, Astreus. And then he slid right into that spot. So I like preemptive, because that was such a narratively heavy campaign, planned for a replacement player just in case. When that player, a year and a half later or whatever, was like, I can't do this anymore, I'm gonna have to step out. It was, in my opinion, we were too far along, and the group had become too like tight to try and force a new player on them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it was too narrative of a game. We were too far along to add a new player, and that's the danger, in my opinion, of a very character-driven game. Is that that's hard to get a new player in there.
I'm in that position right now with Strength 1000 because this is a very narrative, like close knit type of game, and so if any of you guys have to drop out, then it's gonna be hard to get a new person in. I mean, it's easy to find somebody, but it's hard to get them into the story, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. Like Prime was and continues to be our server's top viewed campaign. Like it had a ton of fans, it had a ton of viewers. Like it would have been so easy. I mean,
that's why I joined. That's why I joined the server.
It would have been so easy to be like, does anybody want to join this adventure? And it's like, I've been watching every episode. I'd love to join this adventure. Like, so it's not that I couldn't have filled that spot. I had also reached a point where I didn't like running for bigger groups, and so I was like, we'll see if we can make it to the end with these 5 players. And there were a couple of times where I did not think that the campaign would make it to the end. Like I thought that we would have people quit. I had players message me and say like, I don't know if I can keep going, because again,
I heard the famous Fire Island arc.
Yeah, so we had a lot of we had a lot of strong personalities, and there was a lot of like there was a lot of times where we have to meet like before and after the game and kind of like discuss like, this is a story everyone's telling together. Like if it means that much to you to do this, like you need to understand how it's going to impact everybody else. So there's like constant communication to try to keep the group together. But also, it was such a delicate ecosystem that like I did not feel comfortable adding another player to that game. Mythic somehow, despite all odds, the 5 of you are the same 5 3 years later, which is nuts to me. I think that's crazy. And so I haven't really thought about it too much. If one of you had to leave, I think I would just drop to 4 and keep going, like because we're so close to the end that like it would be silly, in my opinion, to go look for a new player for a campaign that's been going on for 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't know if that would work. Now I say that, but my first Red Hand of Doom game, when it finished, the party druid was like, that was fun, but I don't really want to play high level, so I'm not going to play in Skills of War. And they left, and then we brought in a new guy to replace that guy going into Skills of War. And so he had nothing to do with the previous campaign. He just showed up to be in the new campaign. And that worked fine in the same manner that the Pathfinder campaigns, right? Where you run your 1 to 10.
There's an arc.
Yeah, you run your book 1, your book 2, your book 3. That's your 1 to 10. Now you transition into the 11 to 20. There's plenty of opportunities narratively to have people enter and exit the campaign, so that's fine. And again, it just depends on the game. To me, like it depends on the game and the group. Dragonbane, which I'm going to start running soon, is old school meat grinder dungeon crawler, right? Like, so people are dying all the time. Abomination Vaults was a meat grinder dungeon. Like, people were dying or nearly dying all the time. It made narrative sense any given minute of any given day for someone to be like, fuck all this. I am done. I am not delving any more in this dungeon. I'm retiring. I'm gonna take my money and I'm gonna walk away from the table. I can't do this anymore. And then it's like, hey, anybody want to go in this super dungeon with us? And it's like, I'm crazy and I'll go in the dungeon. And that was all the narrative reason we needed. It's super easy to onboard players for that campaign, right? Yeah. So again, it depends on the group. It depends on the story, the campaign, the narrative, the type of game it is. There's a lot of like new, as always, right? There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of communication. There's a lot of like thinking about, what you're doing and is it a good fit or not. And in my opinion, it's a part of prepping for the campaign. I think that planning, and this sounds like you're planning for failure, but I think planning around what if I lose a player how is that going to affect the campaign should be in your mind. It should be at the front of your thoughts when you are getting ready to run a game. Because I'm getting ready to run Kingmaker someday, right? And it's going to be like 3 years long. So like
you gotta, it's part of it.
I have to accept that during that time, people will leave. Is this the kind of game that I could have people come and go? I can have people like leave and join. I think, yes, Kingmaker allows for like players to come and go, right? Like that's fine. I would never ever want to run a game like Odyssey Prime or Mythic Odysseys ever again. And I don't think that anybody should run those campaigns. They're not very well supported. They're extremely complicated. They're heavily character driven. If you lose a character, you have broken a lot of the narrative of the game. Like that's the issue with the Chosen One, right? If Harry Potter's player decided he didn't want to play Harry Potter anymore in book 3, what happens to books 4, 5, 6, 7 part 1, 7 part 2? Do you know what I'm saying? Like like that's the problem with any sort of Chosen One storyline. Like that's it. Could One Piece, the obviously the D&D campaign One Piece, could it continue without Luffy trying to be king of the pirates? Absolutely. There's a lot of shit happening in One Piece besides Luffy trying to be king of the pirates. That's just what all the, the little boys over in Japan focus on, is that, he's going to be king of the pirates. But like, there's a lot of cool stories there besides Luffy being the king of the pirates. That's not the driving narrative of One Piece. One Piece is like, this is a world full of pirates and superheroes. Let's see what happens. Like, you could tell any kind of story there. Yeah. So like, you have to look at the campaign before you run the campaign. What happens if I lose a player? Curse of Strahd, Isekai. I told people up front, this is going to be the worst campaign you've ever played in. It's going to be horrible. It's going to make you feel bad. It's going to be a terrible experience. And everyone's like, sign me up. And I'm like, okay. And then of the 10 people that have signed up for the Isekai game, we have lost one. And one of them just said, I can't do it. It's too stressful. I don't like it. It makes me feel bad. I'm out, right? I was able to, following the advice that we wrote down here, I asked the community. I said, hey, anybody from the community crazy enough to join this game? And then we got somebody who's been fantastic. And he's like, I was like, do you need me to catch you up? They're like, nope, I watched the stream. I know exactly what's going on. And I was like, perfect. Now, Curse of Strahd is a campaign, in my opinion, that lends itself well to swapping out players, because it is not, if you're running it the way it's intended, character-centric. It is a meat grinder, at the end of the day. It is a horror meat grinder. It is everyone trying to stop Strahd. Sorry for that spoiler. And so, like, it's pretty easy to find people that don't like the most evil person in the world, right? It's pretty easy, to say, hey, I don't like the most evil person in the world either. Do you want to work together? Okay. Oh, never mind, I died. Like, I mean, that's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
That's it.
So yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. One benefit, I think, is that if you are filling a spot in a campaign and the campaign's already underway, this is one of the only times I would consider a person who's already played the campaign joining the campaign. For example, we're so far along in Curse of Strahd, if somebody wanted to play in our game and they had played Curse of Strahd, but maybe like the campaign fell apart, or they died and they were like, I don't want to do this anymore, or whatever reason, they never finished the campaign. It wouldn't matter if they had a whole bunch of spoilers, because we're already past most of the spoilers. And then also, it's evolved organically to be so different than whatever they played that it would still feel fresh for them. So that's a benefit there, I think, of filling an existing campaign. Would you, Dom, would you ever join an ongoing campaign?
I usually look for ones that are starting. If I ever did look for a campaign, I always look for ones that are starting. But depending on if I like with Odyssey of Dragon Lords, I actually joined a Odyssey of Dragon Lords campaign before I joined yours, and we got up to the boar fight, and he did the whole thing where you're supposed to, there's like a pre-game thing that you're supposed to do. Like we went through that, which we didn't do in I don't think we did in I don't think we did it in your game. There's like a pre-dungeon. Yeah, there's like a pre-dungeon thing that you do that apparently was written or something like that, part of the book that we did. But
okay.
So we did that, and then we got to the boar fight, and then the game fell apart. People left, and like and then the GM like changed went from a top down to like a hex based system with like it was kind of weird. So I left.
Yeah.
And so if I were to find a game and they were like around the same time where I left before, of course, yeah, I don't mind jumping in there. But I think I'm more of a start from the beginning if I'm going to start type of player. But who knows? Maybe if I find the right game, like if you didn't have a person for Stolen Fates and like you needed somebody to join in the group for Stolen Fates, I can see myself joining Stolen Fates with the history of Alkenstar
with the group that's already been together, but we're starting a new story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not, in my opinion, that's not too much different than everyone else at the table got together and was like, our characters all know each other, and then you show up and you're like, guess I don't know anybody. Okay, that's cool. It's a little bit more evolved than that because they have inside jokes and history together and things like that. But yeah, I could see that. And that was like the guy, it was actually Stone, who joined Scales of War, even though he didn't play Red-Handed Doom. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I could see that. I joined a campaign, a homebrew campaign, that was in the middle of something. And I got onboarded pretty well, especially since it was a new DM. And yeah, I had a good time. Like I did a lot of times feel like the new kid at school, right? Like I didn't know a lot of the inside jokes. I didn't know a lot of the references. Like an NPC would show up and everyone would be like, "Oh my god, it's that NPC," and I would be like, "I don't know what that means." Okay, are we gonna kill him or we're not gonna kill him? I don't know what's going on here. Like I could definitely see why it would be hard to fill an ongoing game. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm always curious about people that want to join an ongoing game. Like, what is that motivation for wanting to join an ongoing game?
I think it is that they've been trying to play this game, this story for a while, and it keeps falling apart. And so, if this group has already made it this far in, maybe once I join, it might make it all the way through.
Oh, like an already established group. I hop onto that. They've already got the momentum going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I could see that as a reason for joining
now
an established group. Yeah.
The issue is that once you join that group and then it falls apart, maybe there's
maybe there's a constant in the mirror. Right?
Yeah.
Like maybe
there's a constant there.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest reason for joining established groups is that the group is I can commit. Like you're saying, I can commit, but every single time I've tried to commit, stuff happens. The DM, the other players, it falls apart. So this group is like seeing this group this far along. Okay, they were able to commit. I'll join in and maybe they can make this all the way through.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think also it might come down to opportunity as well. Like, there's a handful of DMs that
that's true.
If they were like, "Hey, man, we're already like halfway through the campaign, but it'd be cool if you joined. Would you be willing to join up?" I see appeal there for a couple of reasons. One, if it's a DM that I've always wanted to play with, this might be my only chance to play with that DM. You know what I'm saying? It's like getting that casting call, right? Like you're like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll jump in. The other thing is, like you said, it's a tested formula, right? So this group obviously gets their shit done, right? Because they've been playing for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 sessions or whatever, and you're joining in. And this sounds terrible, I'm always in a hurry when I join a campaign to no longer be in that campaign. So like joining a campaign that's like closer to the end is like kind of appealing to me, because it's like, hey, cool, like we're already like halfway, wow, we're almost done, this is awesome. I joined up, hey, right at the finish line. It's like in Sea of Thieves. If I see Larry's on, I'll like join Larry because he always has a ship full of loot, and then I get to turn in the loot without having to actually do any pirate shit. Like that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. Like join the campaign right at the best part. Yeah, that's the good stuff. Yeah, okay. I think we covered this pretty well. I don't think this is as complicated as an issue as it might seem on the surface.
A lot of it is the same stuff you would do if you had a new character, plus a little bit of extra to get them familiar with how the group has established themselves so far.
So on that, circling back around before we end the stream and you go get eaten by aliens or whatever, but
just a normal routine. Yeah, go ahead.
We made a comparison that's like having a baby. You tell the existing kids like, hey, we're having a baby, we're gonna bring the baby in. Unlike that, you could send the baby back, right? So you need to tell your group, right, your established group, you need to say, hey, this person, I think they're a good fit for the group, but we're gonna play this Saturday, and you tell me after the session if you don't think it's gonna work. Like I need that honesty. I do not want to jeopardize what we already have, right? So like if this person, if you're just like, I can't do it, or they're like, no, this person was like DMing me the whole time and it made me uncomfortable, or anything, right? Anything at all. You tell me, you say, I just don't think it's gonna be a good fit. And then we tell that person like, hey, you know, it was fun, but just don't think you're the right fit for this group. And that's a hard conversation to have, but like,
I mean, it's a conversation that has to happen.
You already lost one player. Yeah, you already lost one player for whatever reason. You don't want to lose even more players trying to fix the missing player. Do you know what I'm saying? So in a way, it is kind of a complicated thing if you don't handle it well. So. All right. So to recap everything, when you are prepping to run a campaign, think about how losing and replacing a player would impact that campaign. Plan around it. Then, if God forbid you do have to replace a player, make sure it's on a probationary period, so that they understand that, you know, the established group, it has to be a good fit with the established group, or they, you know, it's not going to stick around. See if the group has any recommendations. Even if they do, vet that recommendation the same way you would vet any interested party. If you're going to post an ad for the game, act like it's the first time you've ever advertised the game, and take everything that's already happened in the game and use that to tailor and change and update your ad for the game. Because you need to be open and honest about the kind of game that you are advertising, and the kind of game that you're advertising has definitely changed since you started because of the dynamics of the players and their decisions. If possible, recruit from a shared community, because those people are already going to be kind of sharing the same interests, the same vibes as your players. They might know each other from other games. They might know each other from playing, you know, games on the server, video games on the server, just hanging out in conversations, that kind of thing. If you have recorded games, streams, someone that takes great notes, share that information with the players so that they could feel, the new players, so they could feel as knowledgeable about the campaign as possible, so they don't feel like they're just drowning when they first get started. If you don't have any of those things, then definitely set aside a session 0 for that new character, that new player, excuse me, and say like, hey, this is everything that's happening. you have any questions. And then, of course, in-game, if you could find a strong tie to the existing PCs, favorite NPCs, or the ongoing story, that's the best way to immediately make that character and that player feel like they're a part of what's already been going on.
Yep.
Oof. All right. So,
Alrighty.
with all that settled, I'll go ahead and rate you, right? Since you're going to be running the...
Oh yeah, let me go ahead and get this thing started.
All right.
Alright. Oh, I gotta rename. Hold on. Mothership.
And Mothership is like a Geiger alien-inspired TTRPG, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Alright, so as soon as I see you pop up, I'll go ahead and raid you. The 4 or 5 people that actually stuck with us when everything was broken can go hang out and watch you guys get killed by aliens and farm channel points or whatever. Alright, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and throw up the closing out screen. Hope everybody got something useful out of this. Sorry about all those technical difficulties at the beginning. Hopefully it's not a problem that we see persisting with Streamlabs, but, you know. It was a good challenge to do a 40-minute VodCast instead of an hour-long VodCast. So, see you guys next time. All right, rating. All right, have fun.